Guys, if you can see, that I want to discuss what's going on with the NBA scandal. If you recall, on October 23rd, ESPN released this report that Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier were arrested for scandals, betting scandals. Terry with the NBA, which I want to discuss, and Billups not so much about the poker. But if you recall, Terry Rozier was an NBA basketball player that left the game early due to a fake injury, just so he could cover his bet on a player prop, so he don't score over the amount that he was allocated for. This is the report from TMZ on that day.
Nightmare. Breaking news from the league. Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier have been arrested as part of the FBI's investigation into sports betting. Details are still coming in as we speak. You may be following this. Shams has a bunch of it on his Twitter if you're looking at that, and we are collecting and aggregating the information as much as we can, and we'll bring it to you as quickly as we possibly can in a responsible way.
That's what I posted on October 23rd with Terry Rozier. Now, fast forward November 17th or 18th, I'm not too sure when I got an email, but I received an email from Draftkings related to a new policy they have called Draftkings Early Exit program. So now, in the same case as Terry Rozier, if a player exits the game, so it's different from all different sports as far as the NBA is concerned. If a player exits the game for the first half, that player will be voided from your bet. So right here, you got DraftKings Early Exit. It's a program where you may receive cash credits if your bet is significantly impacted by a player leaving the game early due to injury or not returning. How does it work? Customers may be eligible to receive cash credits based on the following criteria. Let me bring this over. For single bets, if your bet qualifies for early exit, you receive cash credits equal to the amount of the original stake. So basically, what he's saying is, if you bet, just a single bet, on a player like a Terry Rozier to score, say his average point was 10 points, and he left the game early before he scored 10 points, then you'll get back your money in some form of a credit. That way you won't lose. For parlays, the same game parlays, the remaining legs of your parlay will remain open and the odds for your parlay will be recalculated, excluding the leg that qualifies for the early exit. So basically what they're saying is, if you have a parlay, like a two-team parlay, and you have Terry Rozier and another player, and the other player won its bet, but Terry Rozier left early, you'll get credit for that one leg. You won't get credit for two legs, you get credit for one leg. What bets are covered under the early exit program? Early exit only applies to the bets placed via the DraftKings sportsbooks. Exactly. I mean, if you play somewhere else, you're not going to refund them. To qualify for early exit, your bet must be eligible bet type and on an eligible market. For example, they're doing it for MLB, baseball, hockey, NHL, WNBA, women's basketball, and any eligible soccer events. Eligible markets, pre-match and full match player prop bets only, meaning you cannot place this on an in-game player prop. So during the game, you can bet for the player to score points based on the in-game. So say, for example, Terry Rozier had his average to score 10 points, but at that time when a live player prop bet might come out, instead of 10 points, he already, say he has like 5 points in the first quarter. His average point might go up to 15 or maybe 17, 18 maybe. So now you have an option to bet on the over and under for the in-game live prop bet. But what they're saying is, if you do that, you're not qualified. It's only for pre-match prior to the game started. Okay, that's what I mean right here. Excluded market live player props. You can't bet on the player once the game has started. I mean, you could, but if you do, you will be subject to lose if the player left. Okay, eligible bet types, single bets, parlays, same game parlays. If you don't know what this is, let's just mix it up. Um, Within the same game, you might take the player points, you might take the team's the team full points to go over. You might even take the team to win, or it might add other player props to it. So within the same game and same team. All right. For NBA and NFL, same. It's the same for live player props. That has happened. Um, well, hold up. So okay, so this is what they exclude in first and second quarter player prop bets. For NBA eligible markets pre-match before the game start and live player props while the game's on full match bets exclude markets first and second quarter player props first half player props. Okay, I guess they say you can't bet on the first half basically. First and second quarter, which equals the first half. You can't bet on the player props in the second half. You could. I guess that means they still in the game. Simple blitz parlays, same game parlays, round robins. We all don't know about round robins. I'll explain that later. Was originally targeted for example, Terry Rozier is targeted to score 10 points, and he already achieved that before he decided to leave early. They would award you with the win. Well, obviously, we have to. And this is the breakdown for by sport, season, and early exit time frame. So for baseball, it's applicable to the regular season and postseason, right? And this is how they determine how they would provide for the early exit compensation. So if a pitcher exits before 3 outs, he's eligible for that early exit program where they'll compensate you. If a batter exits before the second plate appearance, meaning he went up to the plate appearance one, maybe he struck out, whatever the case is. Second plate appearance, if he doesn't show up, then you're entitled to compensation. But all players must start the game, okay, to be eligible. In basketball, it's applicable for the regular season and postseason, but only for players that leave the game in the first half. Anything subsequent to the first half is null and void. Same for the WNBA, except it's first quarter. It's not extended to the first half. Football, first half for players, if they exit early, they'll compensate you. Now, this is only for DraftKings, mind you. Only for DraftKings. Golf withdraws before the start of the second round. Hockey, first period, so if the player exits before the first period, you be compensated. Soccer, subbed out in the first half, included injury time, excluded halftime subs. Okay. When will you receive your early exit cash credit? Customers will be eligible bets under the early exit program should expect to receive their cash credits within 24 hours of the game ending for the single matches or within 24 hours of the last leg being determined for parlays, single game parlays. So, although it'd be nice to award you back your money just in case a player leaves early, they are gonna um, award you in a cash credit, meaning it's gonna go into your account as credit for you to use to play on a future game. But I don't think it's withdrawable. That's the thing, okay? But at least you're getting something back. Where others usually just lose and they don't get nothing in return. I'm sure there's a lot of people lost some big bets. I'm sure there's a lot of big bets that would, yeah, yeah, facts. But other thing is bets that qualify early exit will remain settled as a loss on your my bets tab. I'm sure people don't care; they want their money, but that might mean something in the future. You know, when they tally in how much wins versus losses. What bets are not eligible for early exit? Bets on players who are injured outside of the early exit time frame. Example, the pitcher after 3 outs or a batter after second plate appearance. So if the pitcher makes it past 3 outs or a batter makes it past the second plate appearance, those players aren't eligible. Live or in play, live or in play player prop bets are only eligible for NBA and NFL. So spoke incorrectly earlier. So you are eligible for in-game NBA player prop bets as long as it's prior to the first half. Props on players that were already settled before the injury, regardless of bet status. Props on players that were already settled before the injury. All right, so that's a little tricky. Props on players that were already settled before the injury. So if he had scored 0 for the tallied amount, then that would be a win. But as far as a loss, it won't be a loss. Oh yeah, it would be a loss, but you get your credit back. They should have explained that. You'll get your win if the player leaves early and you covered the spread or whatever the point total was. But if the player left early, it will be considered a loss and you get your money back as a credit. Okay, and you could also cash out your bet early. That's something different. Like they give an option to cash out your bet if you're on a winning streak or losing streak. You can cash out for less or you can cash out for more. I don't know if my bet qualifies for early exit. If your selection is eligible, you'll see an early exit tag on your bet slip. Tags may take time to be added to your bet. We don't guarantee payout. That's the net. Okay, so you'll see something like this if um, if if it's eligible. Now remember, this is just to protect yourself from the scandals that's been going on. Um, this guy spoke about it too, right? Yeah, he got a notification also about what's going
Welcome
on
back
with
to the Green Means
this.
Go
Let's hear what
channel.
he has to
It's your
say.
host, me. Today I wanted to talk about DraftKings' newest update, a new feature that they are adding. I don't want to call it a promo necessarily, although it is under their promo section on their app, but it's called Early Exit. And this is something that I want to discuss the details of, but also ask some questions towards the end of this video. Things that maybe as a cynic and a skeptic, I wonder where this is heading, both for the industry and for maybe even your wallet and your bets. But we'll talk about the good news first. And that is, I perceive it as good news, or most people should perceive it as good news, is if your player exits a game early due to an injury, they've got your back. What does that mean? Well, let's talk about what that means. So, if your player that you bet on leaves the game early, and we'll talk about what early means in a second, and does not return, you will be entitled to compensation. In this case, it is going to be a cash credit. So they're not going to necessarily give you your bet back or void your bet. They are going to give you cash credits that you cannot withdraw, that are otherwise known as DraftKings dollars. So for single bets, if your bet qualifies, you'll receive cash credits equal to the amount of your original stake. And if you have a player in a parlay or a same game parlay, the remaining legs will remain open and the odds of your parlay will be recalculated, excluding the leg that qualifies for the early exit. So for example, if you have a 3-leg parlay, each leg having individual odds of plus 100, resulting in plus 700. If one leg qualifies for early exit, in other words, you have Jason Tatum and he leaves at a set amount of time. We'll talk about what time that has to be for NBA, but he leaves at a certain amount of time. The other 2 legs, let's say it's Derek White and Jaylen Brown, they will remain open and your total odds will be recalculated to plus 300 based on the 2 remaining legs, individual odds of plus 100. If the remaining leg settles as a win, if Brown and White in this instance cash your bet, your parlay will be paid out at a recalculated odds of plus 300. But if one of those loses, you'll just lose the bet. So the advantage here, I do think, is in straights over parlays. But if you're someone who has lost a parlay due to an injured player, everything else hits, this will be a good thing to have in your back pocket. Now, I guess a good positive thing about this is if you have unders, they're going to pay out. They're not going to void your unders. They're going to pay unders out as wins, so that's good. And if, I guess the negative is if like you have Jason Tatum to score 30 points, and somehow he scores 30 points in the first quarter and then gets injured, you're still going to lose your bet, or you're still going to win your bet, I guess, if you bet the over. So if bets already would have cashed outside of this, you'll get the cash value of it. And if they don't, you'll get a void. So what sports and what are the metrics for this? This all matters. Baseball, for regular and postseason, if a pitcher exits before 3 outs, so basically 1 inning. If a batter exits before their second plate appearance, which is pretty good for baseball. I'll say that's pretty good. They get a plate appearance, and if they do not have a second plate appearance, you'll get a void there. So yeah, I do like that, especially for baseball. I think that's good. But the players must start the game. For basketball, regular season, you get first quarter. So in the Jason Tatum example, only after the first quarter does this matter. And then, or I guess before the first quarter does this matter. For postseason, it's first half, which again, also pretty good. For NBA or WNBA, it's the same thing, first quarter. For NFL, it is the first quarter as well, for both regular and postseason. So if you got a running back.
This because his looks a little different from mine. Basketball, NBA regular season, first quarter. And I got first half. Mine came in yesterday. I don't know when this guy's came in. Let me see. He posted this 3 months ago. Interesting. All right. Back to his feed.
Who tweaks his ankle in the first quarter, then you will get that bet back. For golf, after 1 round, if they withdraw before the second round, that's pretty generous also, I would say. A lot of players do withdraw before the second round. So also the good thing about this is if you have a guy who you have as an outright and he goes plus 12 on the first night, just totally ruins it, and he has no chance to win the tournament anyway, and he withdraws because he's doing so bad, you get the bet back. So that is good. I mean, that's awesome.
I don't see tennis on here. Tennis not on his, and tennis is not on mine right here. Now, for y'all that just joined, this came from Draftkings. All right, this is the early exit program, just in case a player leaves the game early, right? And they broke it down by baseball, NBA, WNBA, NFL, golf, hockey, soccer. But I don't see tennis here. Sometimes the players leave, and they usually award you if the player that you pick when the game ends early, they award you. And usually they void the game if the player that you did, the losing player left early. They just avoid it. They don't consider it a loss. Very interesting, but they put it here. Maybe their rules have already been established because they were so used to it. Something I'm gonna dive into and look into later. But right here, baseball. If a pitcher leaves early before 3 outs, he's voided from your wager. Same for a batter. If a batter exits before his second plate appearance, that's it. He's done. He's off the betting slip. All right, but all players will start the game. And for NBA, if a player leaves the game before the first half, that player is done. It's off the bet slip. And the WNBA, first quarter. NFL, first half. All right. Golf, which goes before the second round. Hockey, first period. And for soccer, first half. All right. This is interesting because a player left the game early. It was Obi. I gotta get that game. He played about 8 minutes. He played in the first half a few minutes, and he came back in the fourth quarter to play like 1 or 2 minutes in, and that was a little shady. Back to this guy.
For golf, but I understand that it's going to be very rare circumstances. For hockey, regular and postseason is the first period, and then soccer. I don't bet a ton of soccer, especially not soccer player props, but I would say just looking at this, this may be the most generous sub out in the first half. You get the whole first half in soccer. So understand that the bets that qualify for this will remain settled as loss in your bets tab. So you may have this happen to you and you may be waiting for it to say void or something. It's still going to say loss. They're just going to give you your money back in the form of DraftKings dollars. So here are my questions as we wrap this video up. This doesn't need to be a long video because I think a lot of you are used to this, but my question is this going to become the industry standard? We know Fanatics has a rule in place, but DraftKings is really the first book to lay it out with, a chart like this and some details like this. Is this going to be something that we see top to bottom? FanDuel, MGM, BetRivers, are all the sports books, because we've seen a lot of these rec books. Once one rec book kind of makes a stand and does something, the other rec books typically are like dominoes, and they also do the same thing, because when it is something that is advantageous or appears advantageous for the sports bettor, they, being the other sports books, want to follow in line to continue to compete. Now, we are again getting past this point of competition where sports books are kind of firmly implanted in the industry, and people are betting on DraftKings and FanDuel for the most part, and then the other books are kind of sprinkled out. So you may not see it as much as if this would have been something that was done 3 and 4 years ago. I think every book would have rushed to implement a system such as this. So my question is, does this become the expectation for bettors? Because if people are betting on FanDuel and this happens, and people on DraftKings are celebrating because they have this thing in place, and FanDuel doesn't, how is FanDuel going to respond? How's their PR team? How's their social media team? How is it going to react? So I'm going to take a guess that FanDuel, by the end of 2025, acts. And maybe that's an optimistic guess, and maybe they don't need to because they have a lot of the action across the industry, but we'll see. I also wonder if they're going to stick to the same time frame. Maybe there is some sort of competition within sportsbooks where FanDuel says, hey, DraftKings does first quarter for NBA, we do first half. DraftKings does first quarter for NFL, we do first half.
For you all that just joined, yesterday I received a message, email, text, whatever, from DraftKings regarding their early exit program. Okay? And this is if a player leaves over here, batter. If the batter exits before the second plate appearance, meaning if a batter goes up for his first at bat, say he strikes out, walks, whatever he is, and he doesn't make his second plate appearance, that player, if you waited on that player, you'll get compensated. All right, but all players will start the game. In the NBA, for the regular season and postseason, if a player leaves the game before the first half, injury, or coach decides just not to play him again, that player, if you wagered on a player, you'll be compensated. So this is coming from DraftKings, right? This is coming from DraftKings Early Exit program. And this is how they're breaking it down for the major sports. For the WNBA, same goes for the regular and postseason. However, if a player exits before the first quarter, you'll be compensated for that player if you selected that player. Same goes for the NFL. If a player leaves in the first half, you'll be compensated. Golf, if a player withdraws before the start of the second round, you'll be compensated. Hockey, if a player leaves in the first player, or if a player not just leaves, is like if they don't return for whatever reason, it could be injury, it could be coaching decision, it could be their decision. Whatever the decision, if they have not returned after these so-called periods, first period for hockey, first half for NFL, first quarter for WNBA, first half for NBA, pitcher, if he exits before 3 outs, or batter, if he exits before second plate occurrence, you'll get compensated. All right? Golf, players subbed out, hockey, soccer, players subbed out in the first half, you'll be compensated, but you won't be compensated in cash, you'll be compensated in credits, cash credits for you to use to place on future bet. However, I know a lot of people don't like that. They don't like the idea that, oh, why has it come in a credit? You already put your money in two wages to begin with and took the chance to win or lose. They giving you back something. And a lot of people never complain about that. But they give you back something that maybe they didn't have to, but honestly they do. If you don't think they involved with this, you're crazy. Sports books knows what's going on. It's their industry. So when these players are leaving and stuff, it wasn't that the players just created this. It's been going on from the beginning of time. All right. It's just that once betting became legal on a wider platform, the players decided that they're gonna get, yeah, it should have worked out like this. Yeah, you never know what's going on for real, for real. But yeah, so you'll get your cash back in the form for credit within 24 hours, and it'll look something like this. You'll see something like early exit eligible under that wager. I posted some stuff on this. Y'all remember the scandal with Terry Rozier?
Guys, you feel free to weigh in now, Shek. You've heard from Shams. You saw the FBI director speaking about this. What do you think?
I know everybody that's at play.
Y'all remember?
And I don't
right?
like to sit up here and be hypocritical about certain things.
A lot of people.
I
don't
homeboy
want-
gamble,
right
right?
now.
You know, bet it. You know, we've been on teams. We played cards. We played spades. We played talk. But with that being said, every year they would give us forums on what and what not to do. One of those things where if somebody asks you if a certain player is playing, you say no. So all these guys knew
Trust me,
what was
the
at
great
stake,
NBA players
and I'm
know
just
what's going on.
ashamed that they put them.
I'm telling you, majority of NBA players know what's going on. I've been watching the NBA and sports since the early 1990s. I'm telling you right now, a lot of players know what's going on, and there's a lot that's oblivious to what's going on. But the top tier players really don't play around with the game. They just listen to what the team got to tell them what to do. So I'm gonna go back to this is where how far I'm going back to players doing playing for the team and doing what the team requested of them. Going back to Bird and Larry, these guys were the face of the league, and the Lakers, that was their guy. Boston, that was their guy. Trust me, when they wanted to shut them down, they shut them down. And Magic and Bird didn't say a word. They was getting paid lovely. They came out to perform. But if they were told to exit early, they exited early. They didn't really hurt their stats up, but they come out next game and put it up like to keep that average going. However, it changed kind of during the Michael Jordan era because they realized this guy was like uncontrollable. He couldn't control him, so he controlled his own destiny. And at that point, I realized that they needed more control. But then I stopped watching the NBA after Jordan exited and won his championships. And then what happened was there wasn't too much player props during that era, but Draftkings and FanDuel they 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 created a fantasy league that was separate from considering they twisted their narrative to launch as if there wasn't a gambling website. They considered it a game of chance. So they was able to put out player props, bets out there, just player prop bets. You couldn't bet on the team to win and yada yada, just player props. So FanDuel DraftKings was the first to really explode on the scene with all of this player prop stuff. It was happening prior to them with little companies, or like Yahoo have free sites where you could have like a fantasy league with the NFL or the NBA. But when FanDuel and DraftKings came out, it was on such a huge platform, and it made it as and a a lot of people don't know about this too. FanDuel and DraftKings, when they launched that website, it's not like you deposited money and you bet on the player props and then the FanDuel and DraftKings pay you. No, you're actually playing against your peers. So like me and maybe my friend or me and a stranger, we could put $25 each on a to say, okay, I'm gonna make a lineup where I'm gonna take this guy, this guy, this guy, and by the end of the lineup, I'll say I got 5 plays to pick. I'm gonna pick a starting five for NBA team, and he's gonna pick a starting five. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins the bet between me and him. So I bet 25, he bets 25. That's a pool of 50. DraftKings and FanDuel take a percentage, so they'll take $10 out of that 50 and pay the winner 40. That's how FanDuel and DraftKings got paid. They were just the hub for individuals to wager against each other as far as I could, like in football, I can select a lineup, a starting team, I can select a quarterback, a running back, wide receiver, yada yada. And for the whole season, whoever has the most points or at the end of that game, whoever has the most points wins that bet. But it's not you betting against the book or the company, you betting against another individual in a pool. You got a whole bunch of people in a pool put up money like an NFL pool during an office pool when they bet in squares and stuff. Everybody put money up, and whoever wins at the end of that pool, at the end of the season, whatever it is, it could be suicide pool or for you win the end or for you to win the Super Bowl, whatever it is. Whoever wins at the end wins the pool of all the money that was gathered from your colleagues or friends or whatever. That's how FanDuel and DraftKings had originally operated up until um, 2018 when it went legal. When I think Jersey was attacking it back in 2018. They was maybe earlier than that, maybe 2016. They was attacking the gaming boards out there about trying to get sports betting legalized in New Jersey because New Jersey was losing money. Casinos was losing money, and they wanted to bring sports books in to try and generate revenue. I think it was Governor Christie. He went hard lobbying for sports betting to get legalized in Jersey. And I can tell you a whole history about it because at the time only Vegas had sports betting on lock. No other industry, no other state except that got a funny story. uh, Delaware, Maryland, and maybe one other state was actually eligible to conduct their sports wagering because there was a ban put on it way back, I don't know, in the 40s, 20s. Vegas, or 18, I don't know. Vegas was the only one that said they would lock into sports gambling, and what other states didn't lock in could not offer sports gambling. Maryland and Delaware locked in, with Vegas locked in, but they just didn't offer it for moral purposes. At the time, Vegas was the only one that had it. I think it was back in 2014 or 15. Delaware needed some revenue to come in, so they incorporated sports gambling. Vegas took up to court. They lost, but they was allowed to offer only singles, maybe 2 game parlays, maybe some teasers. If y'all don't know about teasers, I could break everything down later. Um, but they gave them the short end of the stick. They wasn't allowed to really offer the full spectrum of gambling like they were supposed to because Delaware didn't know anything about sports gambling. I called them actually and spoke to one of the managers over there, the sports book, and told them they really got derailed and shortchanged on that whole um, court, however the judge um, orchestrated, or who I don't know how the whole thing ended up, how it ended up, what lawyers the Delaware had, that Vegas had probably had the best attorneys, but like I said, they got shortchanged. Delaware had legalized sports betting before Jersey and all the states. They had it back in somewhere between 2014 2018, right? And then now fast forward between 2018 and 2020, the courts opened up, Supreme Courts will ever open it up for all states, every state that wanted to incorporate sports gambling was allowed to. Jersey jumped in, and I'm from New York, but no, not every state. It wasn't open up to every state. It was New York, unless New York just didn't petition for it. But I'm in New York, and New York didn't have sports gambling at this point when Jersey was allowed to open up. So this is where it gets tricky now. Now, if you was with me from earlier and you heard the story that DraftKings and FanDuel were the first sport, were the first betting sites without you really betting against the book. You was actually betting against your own peers, your friends, colleagues, strangers. You wasn't really betting like I won't deposit money into the sports book or into FanDuel or DraftKings Fantasy League, and if I bet on a player, they pay me. No, I'm betting against my own peers and we put money into a pool, and whoever has the most points at the end of that game or season or whatever, they win the pool. And DraftKings and FanDuel, the way they got paid is to take something off the top. All right, they were the collectors. So they were a $1 billion company. Remember that they never had to pay out anybody. They made probably the most money more than any sportsbook, casino, anything. It was $1 billion company. And prior to Jersey going legit, I want to add something. I think he was the first. What's his name from the Dallas Cowboys? The owner, Jim Jones, Jerry Jones. He got a stake in DraftKings at one point, and I think he was the first to actually merge like a professional sports team with a sports book. Mark Cuban also got involved too with one of these sports books, and and he advertised and promoted gambling, but I'm sure not at this level, the Terry Rozier's and stuff. But so let's fast forward now. Sports betting is legal in Jersey. Now remember now, prior to sports betting being legal in Jersey, DraftKings and FanDuel only offered fantasy leagues where they was the middleman that was collecting money as a hub just to allow people to wager against each other, right? Now, when sportsbook became legal in Jersey in 2018, they opened DraftKings, FanDuel opened up the sportsbook. They opened up a sportsbook in Jersey. Their base was probably in New York. I can't recall, but that's not even important. And when they opened up, oh my gosh, they brought their fantasy league conceptions to the sports book. Now they had player props in sports book, but not on the magnitude of FanDuel and DraftKings because that's all they did prior to that. Remember, they had a fantasy league. All they had at the time was player props, player props, player props. When they brought it to the sports book started offering single game parlays for player props. Bet on Steve Curry to score, hit 5 threes, and you can win this amount, and yada yada yada. And people were so used because majority of people didn't wager on sports books, wager on sporting events up until that point because they was doing a lot of fantasy league because that's what was legal. Gambling, if you wanted to gamble on sports, you had to go to Vegas. And the majority of people were flying to Vegas to wager. I was hitting. I was going out there and hitting, coming home. I was loving it. Just upset that I couldn't fly there every weekend. It was just like every quarter I could fly out there. But um, so now when DraftKings and FanDuel opened up their first sportsbook and they offered all these player prop bets, it became crazy amongst people because they was already following those fantasy leagues. So they figure they know what to wager on, but now it became convoluted because players is like, hold up, man, I see Shaq making 20 million a year. I see this player making that. I only make like a percentage of that. So when we go out, man, my pockets be broke after that night of hanging out with these guys, man. I need more money. So the opportunities there. Opportunities there for these guys to manipulate scoring by shaving points. So if you didn't know what that was, there's a term for it called shaving points. So if you're scheduled to score 10 points and then you, like Terry Rozier case, and he scored less than 10 and he exited in the first quarter, that's shaving points. It happens in games too. You might have a team that's favored to win by 20 plus points, and shaving points they still could win, but they might say, "Oh, I'm moving by 10, I'm moving by 9, I'm moving by 8," versus winning by the amount allotted that the sportsbooks believe that they will should win by. It gets real deep. It gets real deep. But let's go back to Shaq
And put their family and put the NBA in this position. We all know the rules. We all know the letter of the law, and it's just unfortunate. Innocent to proven guilty. But usually, when the FBI has something, they have you. FBI. I know a lot of people from the FBI. And I've been in many of those investigations. They'll wait 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but when they come knocking on your door, they have something. And we all know the letter of the law when it comes to gambling and sports gambling. And I don't want to sit up here like I'm some perfect guy. Like every now and then when I go to Vegas, I'll play some craps and I'll play some roulette, but never gambled at anybody's house. Don't know anything about poker, so I don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the Chauncey thing. But I know Chauncey, I know Damon very well, played with Damon, so I don't want to sit up here, but I'm ashamed that those guys would put their families and their careers in jeopardy. There's an old saying in the hood, all money ain't good money. So if you're making $9 million and you're dealing in certain things, like how much more do you need? Especially if you know you get caught, you can do jail time, lose your career, put a bad image on yourself or your family or on the NBA. I agree with you, Chuck. They dropped the ball.
100%.
They had
100% dropped the ball.
And like you never want to have your name involved in that when you know the letter of the law. And Ernie, again, I know for a fact every year they cancel practice and say don't do this and don't do this and don't do that. So all the guys had the information. So.
Let's let Kenny get in on this thing.
Well, it's super unfortunate. One, because we look at players that are involved and the people that are involved. We're surprised because when you have access and you're at the top of your game, so to speak, as a coaching profession, a player, or whatever, you're at the top of your game, you have access to millions and millions of dollars in this league. So it was surprising that they would put themselves in that position, possibly. It is an innocent until proven guilty. I think the other part is we have to realize that gambling is an addiction. So the addiction of it is what makes you make illogical decisions. So not because you make $9 million. There are people who are making, as the FBI director said, there's a man who lost $1.8 million. That means he has a lot of money, so he has an addiction to that, those fish that they talk about that they were bringing in. So gambling is an addiction which can make you make illogical decisions regardless of your ethnic.
He's right. I'm not knocking it. He's right. It is an addiction, but I also understand what Chuck is saying too, because like when you got money, and you decide to utilize your money for however you want to be entertained, whether it's going to party, whether it's shopping, whether it's doing drugs, whether it's traveling, you you do what you want with your money. At the end of the day, the addiction part about it is if it starts hampering or destroying your life somehow. Like if I'm addicted to food and I'm overweight and my heart is, I'm having heart problems or my cholesterol's high or whatever, then I'm doing it to myself. But if I'm eating a lot and I have no medical condition, then I'm okay. That's how I look at it with gambling. If the gambling is affecting your life financially somehow, that's a problem. But if you okay and you could sub out and say, you know what, I was gonna go buy me this nice watch for about 20K. And you decided to go to the casino and drop it and lose it, then I get it. You wish watching the money somehow. You understand?
Background, regardless of your physical background and regardless of your financial status. So let's understand that. And I disagree in terms of the NBA dropping the ball. This is an ongoing investigation. There's no way that any FBI or police even would come to anyone and say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the surprise element always makes it happen.
All right, so for y'all that just joined, I'm going to take this off and I'm going to come back later, about 9 or 11. DraftKings just DraftKings sent me a notification yesterday for their early exit program. So now if a player leaves the game early, depending on the sport, this is a breakdown. For baseball, for pitcher exits before 3 outs, you'll get compensated. If now remember this is baseball, all right? I'm gonna break it out on other sports. For the batter exit before a second plate appearance, okay? So if the batter only went up to the plate once, and whatever he struck out, got hit by a pitch, whatever the case was, and he didn't make the second appearance, you'll get compensated for it. For all players will start the game. Same for the NBA. If the player leaves in the first half, for whatever reason, injury, coach decided not to play him, or he left, for medical reasons, whatever the case is, you'll get compensated for that player up the first half. Same for the WNBA. First quarter exit, you'll be compensated. NFL, first quarter exit, you'll be compensated. Golf, withdraws before the second round, you'll be compensated. First period for hockey, you'll be compensated. If a player in soccer gets subbed out in the first half, you'll be compensated. This is coming from DraftKings to try and compensate the people that have wagered on games and plays that early due to really not knowing if it was legit or not. This is a way to give back. I'm gonna cut this up and then I'm gonna discuss it later on in depth. Low commentary on this from beginning to end. Talk about the history. So I'm gonna put out a post so y'all to jump in live. All right. So I was just looking at it, and this guy, he spoke about this 3 months ago. So I think y'all need to go. I'm also going to discuss that. Y'all probably should go check your prior wages to see if y'all got affected by this. If y'all entitled to some type of cash out. All right, y'all still with me? About to chop this up and post it. Oh man, that's not cool. Let me see what I got from it. In the meantime, let me play this for y'all while I'm trying to chop up this video. It's about the NBA scandal. It's about DraftKings early exit policy.
Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me. Today I wanted to talk about DraftKings' newest update, a new feature that they are adding. I don't want to call it a promo necessarily, although it is under their promo section on their app. But it's called Early Exit. And this is something that I want to discuss the details of, but also ask some questions towards the end of this video. Things that maybe as a cynic and a skeptic, I wonder where this is heading, both for the industry and for maybe even your wallet and your bets. But we'll talk about the good news first. And that is, I perceive it as good news, or most people should perceive it as good news, is if your player exits a game early due to an injury, they've got your back. What does that mean? Well, let's talk about what that means. So If your player that you bet on leaves the game early, and we'll talk about what early means in a second, and does not return, you will be entitled to compensation. In this case, it is going to be a cash credit. So they're not going to necessarily give you your bet back or void your bet